guys, I hope that you all are doing well. This time we have Poulomi Hari with us. This time I'm not going to introduce you to the guest because she believes in the strong principles of Mahabharata that to keep your identity anonymous. So she says that she's just a girl named Poulomi Hari. This is not actually a podcast, this is the fruitful conversations that we had. We have talked about advantages of learning Hindu mythology, soul and enlightenment, and some intriguing facts and stories about Hindu mythology. So without any further delay, let's get into the video. Today we have Poulomi with us. Hello Poulomi and welcome to my channel.
Hi Arya, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Here it's raining.
So Poulomi is going to tell us all about Hindu mythology.
Sure. Ask me whatever you like.
So I would like to ask, what is Hindu mythology?
So, Hindu mythology is nothing but a riddle, most like a small pieces of puzzle, and every word, every shlok, every god's name is nothing just but a metaphor for something much more deeper. So the thing is, they didn't try to be very preachy. क्या होता है कि whenever we tell something philosophical, we tell someone anything very which has a lot of philosophy in it, people think it's going to be boring. So to make it interesting, the older rishi munis, the bigger philosophers, they turned them into like very funny fables and stories, so that the public will remember them and we can pass it on without any problem, and people can learn a lot from that. They can sit and decode what the thing tried to mean. For example, I'll tell you the story of Lord Ganesha. It's going to be Ganesh Puja very soon. So the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, once Lord Goddess Parvati wanted a child, so she told Lord Shiva, and Shiva was like, "I'm not in mood." So Parvati goes down to her room. She creates a little doll and blows life into it, and that doll, that person becomes Vinayak, and he thinks that he, has to take care of the goddess. So he, guards the room, and when Shiva comes and he's like, "You're not supposed to go inside my mom's chamber." And Shiva is like, "I didn't birth you. You're not my son." And then they both fight, and they are like, suddenly there becomes a whole scuffle, and Shiva just blows his mind. He just breaks his head. And then Parvati comes out, and it becomes a huge mess. And then finally, they find a elephant's head. They sew it into the doll, and they blow the life again. And that's how Ganesha comes into life, right? But when you look at in another perspective, Ganesh means Lord. Ganesh means leader. Goddess Parvati is nature, so she created Ganesh, and that whole scuffle actually means because that person believes that he owns the universe. We own the universe. That's what we feel at one point, right? And then time comes. Like Shiva is also called Mahakal. Mahakal simply translates to what? Time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when a person fights with time, he gains a perspective, he becomes wiser. So an elephant head symbolizes wisdom. So Ganesha is considered to be a god of wisdom, and he has, if you observe the hands, the four hands. In two hands, he's holding something like a whip. It's called Ankush, or something that controls. So it symbolizes actually self-control. So a leader has self-control, and he'll be wise. He also has a small rat next to him. Have you seen that? With
Mm-hmm.
Chuha, छोटा सा Chuha. That rat actually symbolizes the corruption. Rats are known for stealing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So someone who is at a leadership position can easily become very corrupt. He can steal without letting anyone know. So Ganesha also controls that rat, that urge to be a thief, to be corrupt. It's very easy to misuse your power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that's the story. That's the thing they try to tell by that whole symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
Everything every god and goddess is shown with an animal. That is actually the animal instinct that we need to control when we gain that much power. So
Mm-hmm.
when you become very much fierce, like Durga, you have a lot of anger and power. That time you become like a beastly lion. You know, you can kill anyone. You have the power. You have the anger. So you have to control that anger as well.
Mm-hmm.
Durga is shown standing over a lion, so she knows how to control the anger, the pride, the ego. Similarly, if you see Lakshmi, Lakshmi is shown with an owl. Why an owl? Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth, actually. And
Mm-hmm.
with too much wealth, you become sleepless. So the owl shows that you can be easily,
Mm-hmm.
lose your sleep behind your wealth. So you have to control that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're trying to tell. So that is Hindu mythology. This is nothing but a small way of symbolizing something. They didn't try to be very preachy with that. They just in a very interesting way, they told something very important, and that stayed with us because, see, I don't know how many years back all these things were created, but they are still there and they're very much true. And I know them, and my children will know them, and their children will know them later on if we carry on this whole
Mm-hmm.
um, puja part and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So, to make them interesting, they converted it into the story form so that the
yeah,
generations can remember.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, many people also, question why Mahabharata and Ramayana were converted into, big poems. I used to have that question. They could have written it like a novel, but why so many verses of poetry? So it clicked sometime before that if you write something in the form of a poem or a song, people remember it because it rhymes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to, corrupt them. Data churana itna aasan nahi. You cannot steal a data from it. You cannot steal a word from a poem because it has a certain notation. It stays there like a song. You remember a song much better than a whole paragraph of the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. You will not remember that. So to memorize all that, because written is often lost in time, but the spoken, if you remember it in the form of a song or a poem, you will remember it for a better time, for a longer time. For example, in Europe, there was a song called "Old Lang Syne." No one knows the meaning of that, but
Mm-hmm.
every New Year they sing that song for Old Lang Syne. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows the meaning of it, but it's there because people remember it. It's a spoken thing, so that stays for a very longer time. So every shlok, every word has a certain chand. There is a little bit of marking. There's a quantity by which it is written. It's a very complex way they have written, and Sanskrit was limited only to Brahmins. So the Brahmins used to memorize it, and they kept that tradition. So the spoken thing remained for like 5 to 10,000 years now, and it's still there. It's recorded as a history, and it's written in the form of a shlok, so everyone remembers it and still carry on. Maybe I'm not in this generation because now it's just in the internet. So that's how it is. Okay. So,
So,
and
what do you think? What is the importance of learning mythology?
see, it's more or less a gift to us because not everything you can learn from your teacher. Not everything you can learn from your parents. After all, they are also learning at their point of time. But these things have been there for like many years. I think this is a intellectual property of our country, and it's not like silly thing. It's something that very wise people have written.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, it's wisdom, and it's always good to accept wisdom and actually observe on it. So I think it's much better to observe and analyze all those old texts once again in a
Mm-hmm.
new perspective and you'll find like baffling things out of it. For example, I found like really baffling things in Mahabharata. For example, there was one line that said that Duryodhan, he was talking to Dhritarashtra actually after he came back from Indraprastha, and he was like, the Pandavas have brought a cloth from the north, the thread of which was woven by insects. You know what that means? He told about silk. He
Mm-hmm.
was talking about silk
Mm-hmm.
in that text. So yes, there is a proof that silk was there so many,
Mm-hmm.
many years ago, and that it was brought from China, isn't it?
Yeah.
So get goosebumps when you find those kind of things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the thing. And another thing is obviously the thing that I told. It's a philosophy that is embedded in a form of a story, and it's more or less going to help your life moving ahead,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what I think is important.
Mm-hmm. So it means that you are going to learn a lot of new things from it.
Yeah, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely.
A lot of
There's
fascinating.
no end to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, Hindu mythology particularly is so full of different types of stories that it's just mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you read Panchatantra and you're like, yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
You think,
Yeah.
okay, that's really true.
So how you started developing interest in mythology?
That's a good question. Actually, I um uh we had Doordarshan in our house. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we were not poor. It's just my parents were like, she needs to study, so they didn't allow me to watch cable network television for till I was in 12th standard. So we had a black and white television, and we used to watch Doordarshan. And on Doordarshan at that time in the 90s, it was a pattern. Every day there was a micro show. On Monday there will be Ramayan. On Tuesday there will be something. It was continuous. So I grew up watching mythology. So I had an idea. Then my grandparents, my parents, they were all into puja part. And then somehow, I grew up with it. Actually, it just happened to be a part of my life. So I saw that I learned things very quickly, and then I started gaining interest in Mahabharata because Ramayana honestly is like a children's story for me. Mahabharata is a lot more complex. So I found it much more interesting, and I read it, and there were many characters that I loved. So I think that worked a lot to me. So that's how I gained interest in mythology. As
So
not just yeah,
yeah,
it's
please go
not that
ahead.
I gained interest; it
Mm-hmm.
was thrust on me.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with mythology. It was this one actually, the one that was written by Mihir Bhuta, this
Mm-hmm.
uh, Star Plus Wala Mahabharat. It was very good actually. It's all credit to the writer Mihir Bhuta. He
Mm-hmm.
was a very good writer, and also I love Devat Patnaik shows. So yeah, that's what happened. You see, you hear stuff like, no, Draupadi had 5 husbands. When you're a kid, you're like, okay. And then when you're when you're my age, you're like, why exactly? So
Mm-hmm.
those kind of questions need answers, and that's what you try to find, right? For example, I always wondered, like when I was a kid, I'd never wondered about it, but when I grew up, I wondered why how Sita managed for so many years with 2 men, and that was not the time when there were sanitary pads. So how did she manage? So that was a question that I asked myself, and my roommate was there, and she told me that, I read one thing about them that before going to the Vanvas, they went to a rishi, and the rishi's wife gave her a magical cloth that never got dirty. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, and like, okay. So there was a technology like that. It seems. Not- Yeah, you know that. the murti in Konark temple used to be floating in air. It seems that they were two magnets up
Mm-hmm.
and down, and the murti was made of metal, obviously. So because of the magnetic field, that thing, suspended in air because both the magnets were pulling up and down. And because of some stupid, what you call it, infiltration by the Mughals, it got destroyed at one point. But the magnets were destroyed, but the Murti stays there. So, and nowadays they are preparing that kind of technology. They are putting magnets up and down and they're suspending a chair in the middle. It's working. But those technology existed, long back.
What is soul and enlightenment?
Right. So you see, have you ever imagined like you are a body, you can feel, you are a person that you can feel something, you can talk, you can feel, you can see, you can walk, right? But the same power is not given to another object like a brick. That brick doesn't move, that stays where it is. And but at the same time, it says that light moves, but it doesn't have a body. So you see, there are certain things. Everything is conscious. I personally believe that everything has a consciousness. Like even if the wind is flowing from one direction to other, I feel like it knows it has to go there. That's why it goes. I don't know why I feel that. That's because I have a, in our, belief that everything has a soul, and that soul, because it's inside a particular type of body, it has its foundations. It cannot move. It cannot breathe. Whatever has life, it is a part of that thing. So soul, I think, is a complex thing to understand. But everything in this universe has a soul, and it's this body that is working, that is projecting this illusion of life in it. But yes, and enlightenment is knowing that each and every soul is a part of you. So water is water, right? If you go to an ocean, it's still water. If you take a cup of water from a river, it's still water. You know,
Mm-hmm.
water is just water, hydrogen oxide, sorry, dihydrogen oxide.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, a soul and the universal soul is just the same. Your soul, my soul, we're still the same component. So one who realizes it, his realizes his oneness with each and everything, that person is enlightened. One person who, suddenly wakes up and realizes, oh, yeah, everyone's the same. We're all the same. That person is actually enlightened. He will know that I cannot affect this family wala because he's a part of me. So it's nothing. It's just knowing that God, we're not different. We're just the same people. We are one. We are one universe, and everything is substantially just a part of the same thing. That's what it is. That is soul and enlightenment. Soul is like a drop of water, and the universe is like the whole ocean. Okay? Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, what is karma? What do you think about it?
Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Every
Mm-hmm.
action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you hit the wall, you get hit yourself. If
Mm-hmm.
you throw something in the air, it falls down. Yeah, everything has a reaction. Every action has a reaction. Maybe it comes now, maybe it comes from little far, but it will come eventually. It
Mm-hmm.
will affect. If you throw a pebble in the water, it will create ripples. So whatever you do will have an effect. That's the truth. So when you say someone is doing bad to you, he is also doing bad to himself because
Mm-hmm.
essentially
To
he's
get
just,
back to him.
yes, he's just, harming his own character. He's giving himself a bad mouth.
Mm-hmm.
He's creating a, situation that you will not trust him, and whoever you will tell them they shouldn't trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So his karma will affect him eventually. So that's how it is. Whatever you do, whatever others do, will obviously come back to them in some way, but it
Mm-hmm.
will come eventually. So in Hinduism, karma is like of three types. one that has a very quick response, you
Hmm.
know, that happens just quickly. You're not careful, something bad happens. That's it. Then there is another karma that will happen within your lifespan, that someone has done something bad to you, and it manifests like 4 or 5 years later. That's there too. And then there is Rakta Beach, means seeds of blood. That thing will manifest itself in another life. So
Hmm.
once Dhritarashtra asked Krishna, he, I, what was my fault? Why did I have to lose 100 sons? So Krishna was like, we'll show you. And he gave him divine sight, and he saw inside his previous lives. And 50 lifetimes ago, he was a hunter who had, who tried to hunt a bird, a duck, basically, but somehow the duck escaped. So he abducted the female duck, not duck actually, it was a swan. Yeah, so he abducted that bird, and he sat that bird down and killed each of its ducklings one by one in front of his eyes. So that little thing, that cruel, insane thing that he did, that animal cruelty, that manifested itself 50 lifetimes later. So Dhritarashtra was like, I should have been punished within that life, right? So Krishna said, no, you had to have the same amount of children. You had to have 100 kids for that. So Dhritarashtra was like, why not the next lifetime? Like, oh, for 100 kids, you had to have enough merits. So for 50 lives, he was accumulating merits to birth 100 children in one life. And when it happened, he lost them all.
Hmm.
So that's how it manifests. It takes time, but it comes eventually in some way. So yes, that's what I think.
So, what is the last message to the audience you would like to give?
Well, I would say don't follow anything blindly. I'd say, because see, it's easy to relate to religion, but then it becomes a religious dogma. So instead of converting it into a dogma or set of instruction manual, instead of doing that, I would like to say, I would like to plead to the audience that please observe, analyze, deal with it, really put your heart to learning instead of fighting on the internet like trolls. Means I've seen enough for one lifetime. I just understand it very vaguely that religion is very sensitive issue for everyone. I would say instead of following the rituals, I would like to tell them that please follow what they have tried to say. I would really want them to analyze and think and you know discuss mythology in a better, in a more open-minded way. That's what I'll try to say. Be more open and live and let live.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
so
you saying?
much for being here.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is all mine. If you are new to my channel, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can get the latest updates. Comment down below what's your reaction on this video. Like this video and share this video as much as possible.